Welcome to the Couchboard podcast, where we naively talk about anything and everything for your listening pleasure. I am Colby, and I have with me, as always, Max and Jordan. How you doing, fellas?
Doing well, thanks.
I'm excellent. Thanks for asking.
Yes, no one has asked me, but I'll get over it. I'm doing well.
How are you?
Doing really good. So, what's going on? Introductions. What's new this week? What have you guys been up to?
I've been making some bunk beds. That's fun. It's been quite the chore, but keeping me busy.
Making or assembling?
Making.
Wow, cool.
From scratch. I've grown the trees. I've cut them down.
When you were a 10-year-old boy, you thought, someday I'm going to have two beautiful boys, and so I'm going to go buy some seeds and plant the trees. And
Indeed. I've been putting that together. It's a lot of planning. You got to plan, and you got to lay it all out. It's a nuisance, but it's fun. It's coming together. So hopefully they'll have beds soon.
Dope. Because right now they're just sleeping on the ground.
Sleep on the cement, you know. They'll take what they get.
We are researching clover mites because they are all over our windowsills.
What are those?
So,
I have no idea what you're talking
they're tiny little red arachnids.
Ew.
They're like tiny.
Oh, like speck.
Yeah, like a barely moving little red speck.
Yeah.
So that's been fun. We also got a bike trailer, so we've been taking the kids on bike rides, which is fun.
Nice.
I've been cooking a lot. If you follow me,
I saw that.
You saw my tart yesterday.
I did.
Yeah,
Beautiful
that was
stuff.
I made the wife and I celebrated 8 wonderful years of marriage yesterday, so I made a tart, and it's all for me though, because tragically for my wife, she actually doesn't have like a huge sweet tooth. So that was fun though. That was fun too.
8 years?
8 years. 8 years.
That's crazy.
Yep.
We're coming up on 9. I guess it was not that long after we got married that you guys got married.
Yep. So we did that. What else? I've been trying to make a sourdough starter, and that's not going so well. I'm on my second try of making it, and I'm like following the recipe. I wonder if it's because like I'm in Arizona. Well, the first time I made it, it wasn't like super warm yet in our house, and so I didn't know if it was warm enough, and so now I have it like in our stairwell, which gets kind of toasty during the day, and now I'm wondering if it's too toasty for it. So I'll keep you posted when I crack the how to make a sourdough starter. But
I'm gonna need some once you get it going.
I know, like I'm happy that. Well, that's the funny thing about when you are making a sourdough starter is you throw away a ton of it. You have to like every 12 hours you got to dump out like 75% of your starter and then refeed it with more flour and water, and then but that's like totally a thing is people will share their starters with each other. In fact, when I was Googling how to make a sourdough starter, there was like an eBay auction going on for like a 200-year-old sourdough starter, and I'm like, something about buying some stranger's sourdough starter just is a little scary to me.
Seems a little gross.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool though. Hopefully it turns out. I know they're always tricky.
Yeah.
I've thought about it. I've thought, hey, let's try sourdough, and then I start reading into it. And I'm like, nah, I'll pass. Regular white's fine.
That's how I've always been too. And like, you can like buy a starter, and I'm just like, I'd rather like make my own starter. But it's a huge time commitment. And now that I'm actually stuck at home, and I can actually tend to it a little bit more easily. But even then, it's still just like. There's like times I'm like, I don't want to like go freaking feed that thing again and deal with it. So
I've stuck to anything I can make in a bread maker, and that's the extent of it.
Yeah.
But I have to do gluten-free, so I've learned to do some pretty good gluten-free stuff.
Yeah, I've never tried making in gluten-free anything.
Yeah.
Is there such thing as good bread that's gluten-free? Does it exist, Colby?
Only when I make it. But
no, but seriously, have you like? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming the gluten stuff is always going to be better than.
Yeah, the gluten stuff is always better. There's some decent stuff. My wife got some really good sourdough gluten free a while back that was pretty good.
Doesn't that
But
Ezekiel's make gluten-free stuff?
Yeah, there's a bunch of brands, Char and Energy. There's Mountain West up here. There's lots of good ones. There's a local one here in Utah that's pretty good. I feel like you can always tell a difference.
Are they
though.
pricey? Is it more expensive? I'm
The
assuming?
local one? Yeah. They're all more expensive, and they're way small.
Huh.
Way small.
Interesting.
So, yeah. Anyway, bread. I'm getting hungry. All right. Our topic today is movies. We've covered video games, music, Star Wars rankings. Today we're going to cover movies, which we always, I feel, talk about a little bit in every podcast anyway. So we're going to make it a focus. So movies is a huge, huge topic, understandably. So this is kind of off the cuff, what we're thinking right now, movie-wise, what we're feeling right now. So we're going to go ahead and just start off with the question of some of your favorites that came out recently, like going back maybe 3 to 5 years tops. Who wants to start? Who's got something?
I'll give you something. So
Max.
it's a good one. So mine is within the last 3 to 5 months. How about that? Not just 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 months. 1917, though. You guys haven't seen it, right?
Nope, not yet.
My wife refuses to watch war movies, so I'm still waiting for a time when I can watch it when she's otherwise occupied.
It is. So I can spend too much time talking about this, but I really enjoyed it watching it in the theaters. I was already excited before I went and saw it, which can be both good and bad because sometimes the movie has a hard time living up to your expectations. But it's a World War I movie, which I feel that makes it a little bit more unique relative to other war movies. In fact, I'm struggling to think of another famous World War I movie that people really like. But I remember being excited about it because the big idea that it was super popular about this movie is it's shot as one continuous shot, and the story just keeps going and going and going. And obviously, as you watch the movie, I mean, if you want to be, it's not rocket science. So if you sit there and watch it, like you can kind of figure out when they broke their shots up. You know, something will move in front of the camera, or like the camera will pan where there's no people or something like that. So it's not. I'm sure there's more to it than that. And so I was kind of, the first time I saw it, I was kind of getting a little distracted trying to figure out where they were breaking up the shots. But there was just a moment at the end of the movie, and I don't want to spoil anything, but like the climax of the movie, it's not spoiling anything to say the movie's about two guys that are going behind enemy lines to deliver a message. And the climax of the movie was just the scenery was amazing. The set was outstanding. And then the music was really good. And I just remember like having this moment, like sitting in the theater, I was like, you know what? Screw it. Like I really love everything about this movie right now. And I hadn't had an experience like that with a movie where, you know, I was just like so engrossed into what I was watching in front of me. And I think the other thing I really liked about 1917, in addition to everything I just mentioned, is it did a good job of, I think it avoided a lot of war movie cliches, and I think it did a good job of kind of defying my expectations where you expect it to go one way and it didn't really quite unfold as you might think. And it was also paced exceptionally well. There was a really good balance of action, but there were some really good scenes that kind of make you reflect on, and again, I don't know, I've never served in the military, but that just kind of make you think, yeah, war sucks. And it's amazing to think about these young guys that go out there and put their lives on the line for it. And so there's some good moments in there for that. Anyways, end of my rambling about 1917.
I don't need to go see it now.
Go watch it. Although you miss seeing it in theaters, which I think it'll be fine, but I don't know. The cinematography was outstanding, and it was fun to see that unfold on the big screen.
That's what I've heard. I've heard it knocked it out of the park for cinematography and just how it was shot, and everybody is like that. Just pulled them that much deeper into the movie. Like the story is good and everything, the action's good, but just being able to have a constant shot of the two guys, it just made them that much more attached to the movie. So yeah, I'd like to see it, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's good. It's a good one.
Yeah. I would have to say, and this is a little bit beyond your time frame there, Colby, but I would say the first John Wick just blew me away as far as something original and just out of nowhere. And I just really love the movie. I think the story is a little comical. Yes, it starts about it deals with Keanu losing his dog, and he of course loses his wife, which is really what drives everything. But then some guy takes his dog and kills his dog and sends him down. Brings his past back to his present, and he destroys a Russian mob, which is, just classic. I just feel like we've had so many repetitive movies. It came out in 2014, but even still, like, we'd had a number of comic book movies up to that point, and even then it was like each of the comic book movies followed the same, story arc and everything, and this was a breath of fresh air for sure. And I just you could tell he put all the work in to really train and everything he did for, like I said, for his training. It really showed in the movie. And I was sitting there, during all the fight scenes, the club scene, that one's perfect. And, it just really captured you for sure. So, I also like that it wasn't so, on the nose that, hey, we're having a sequel. It opened up the door to this world that they had developed with this hotel and this assassin's way of life, and it made you want to see more of what that world held, and they opened that up for sure in the second and third. But I would say for one of my most favorite and most original movies I think I can recall in the past couple of years would definitely be John Wick.
I have watched John Wick where all of the fighting sounds are Michael Jackson noises like 1,000,000 times. So
That's good too.
I feel you. It's a great video. But I really like John Wick too. I did see John Wick and I enjoyed that. The headshot counter YouTube video for John Wick 1 is pretty good too.
I remember when previews were first coming out for John Wick and thinking that movie looks terrible. Shame on me for doubting Keanu Reeves, but I was just thinking that is probably going to be some generic, lame action movie, and I could not have been more wrong in my assumptions about it. I thought it did an excellent job of, again, defying your expectations. Where I do disagree with you a little bit, Jordan, and I do enjoy the sequels. I don't know if I really enjoy the world that they're building in those sequels. It's not necessarily my favorite. Again, both great movies. John Wick 2 and John Wick 3 are great movies. I like John Wick 3 more than I like John Wick 2. But yeah, I don't know if I like all the different factions of people and everything that's going on.
Yeah, it starts to get a little bit overwhelming in the third. I imagine they'll, in the fourth and fifth, they'll probably bring it back to the core group that people cared about. Like I didn't really care about the I don't know what her job was, the accountant, what they call her. They had a name for her, like that, the lawyer person that came in and said that was trying to ruin John's life. I didn't care for her, but they're gonna have to go get revenge on this higher power in the world, whoever that group will end up being. But I don't know. I imagine they'll tone it down a little bit, but who knows? Maybe they'll just keep expanding. I wouldn't really love that because I was feeling the same way by the third, where it's like, okay, this is neat, but how much deeper does this go? And I don't know. It's fun to explore that, but it can be overwhelming and annoying.
I was just gonna say I haven't seen the sequels. I've only seen the first one, but I need to. They're on my list.
Yeah, you should. I think and then spoilers for our millions of listeners out there, but I think the thing I don't like about the sequels, especially in the second one, is it kind of ruined parts of the first one for me. Like how he had like some debt to another assassin that is ultimately like what helped him get out of like the business. Whereas like in the first one, it was more like this guy had like a pencil and he killed like 1 million people to get out of the business. But it was like, wait, what? He needed help to get out? And like now he's like in debt to someone? Nah, like, it kind of ruined it for me where he got out on his own and had no ties or no responsibility to anyone. So anyways, that's a little nitpicky, but...
Okay, all right. Well, I didn't pick a single favorite because I don't think I could even pinpoint a single favorite from the last couple of years. So I have just a couple to fly through from the last 3 to 5 years. I know everyone has superhero movie fatigue, but I thought Infinity War and Endgame were super fun, and I really, really enjoyed the ending and culmination of kind of that phase of Marvel movies. Jojo Rabbit, which came out recently, I thought was a ton of fun. It's super good and like still poignant. Like you can't make a movie about that time period without having something that kind of tugs at your heartstrings. So it kind of bridges the gap there really well between being really goofy, funny, and entertaining, while still, kind of giving you the feels. Wind River was a really good movie I watched a little bit ago. I don't watch a ton of super grown-up movies anymore because my kids don't stay in bed and they come interrupt all the time, but Wind River was really good.
What's Wind River? I don't know if I remember what this one is.
Has Jeremy Renner and Emily Olsen, and she's like an FBI investigator, like in rural Wyoming or something.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a fun movie.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one. And then since I watched tons of kids movies, I really actually liked Frozen 2, which I thought was surprising because I hated Frozen 1. I thought Frozen 1 was one of the worst animated movies that I'd ever seen, but I really enjoyed Frozen 2, which I was not expecting.
I just saw it recently, but the kids are just, I don't know, it wasn't holding their attention very well, so then I couldn't also get into it. So I don't know. I think it was good. I think it was fine for the for a sequel, but I kind of thought that it would be a lot more groundbreaking in some way. I don't know, just because the first one was such a smash hit, this just kind of seemed like a lackluster follow up to me. But
yeah, it seemed to me like it was what Frozen 1 should have been, because I thought Frozen 1 was boring and dumb, and the music wasn't very good. But I really liked Frozen 2 because I thought it made up for it in those aspects. There was a better story, more of a story, and the music I thought was way better. Let It Go was super popular, but from the get-go I never liked it. And in Frozen 1, when the trolls start singing, I'm like, holy cow, there's a song every 5 minutes and none of them are good. This is insane. And I didn't get that fatigue in Frozen 2.
Wind River made me think of another movie that came out probably more than 5 years ago. Did you guys ever see the movie Prisoners? With Hugh Jackman
Prisoner?
And Jake. Prisoners,
yeah,
plural.
That was really good. Where his son gets kidnapped?
Yeah. It was daughter. His daughter gets kidnapped. His daughter gets kidnapped. That's a really good kind of mystery movie. But Hugh Jackman really delivers a great performance, and it's one of those movies I like being just yanked along on this ride and just like trying to get to the bottom of like who did it and what happened, and I thought it did a good job of delivering a surprise at the end. So that's another fun one, and it's directed by a really good director. He directed his name's Denis Villeneuve or something. He directed that. He directed Sicario. He directed did you guys see the new Blade Runner movie?
No.
I saw it on a plane.
Oh, yeah, I did.
I thought it was pretty good.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it seems like not a lot of people liked it, maybe because it was too long, which I can understand. And I mean, because I think the original Blade Runner is a very popular and well beloved sci-fi movie. It's a great movie, and I think that's a tough movie to try and make a sequel about decades later. But I thought they did a really, really good job following that up. In fact, the guy who did the cinematography for Blade Runner 2049 is the same guy who did the cinematography for 1917, and he won an Oscar for both. Now you know.
Dope. Anyway, yeah, so those were kind of my favorites of the last 3 to 5 years. I need to see, what was it called, the one with Hugh Jackman?
Prisoners.
Prisoners, yeah.
That's like a good, if you want to just be maybe kind of like some, not quite like, not a whodunit, but a good suspenseful, like, oh crap, how's this movie going to end and who did it?
Okay, I'm putting it on my things to try list.
Do it.
Yep, it's going on there. All right. So, that was good. There's lots of good movies. I feel like there's tons of movies coming out these days, whereas like growing up, you kind of knew everything that was coming out,
right.
And now you just can't keep up. There's so many movies. And a lot of them have actors you've never heard of and you realize that are probably pretty low budget, but still, it's fun to have the options.
I think to your point, Cole, there's a lot more of an indie scene, which is becoming even more popular for like famous actors to get more involved with. Like Jojo Rabbit, if you ask me, that's like more of like a indie movie versus a mainstream movie. Didn't like Scarlett Johansson appear in that movie, or even
yeah, she plays a pretty main role in it.
Yeah, so I think it's becoming, and that's something that's an interesting evolution in movies where maybe I'm wrong, but when we were teenagers, I don't really remember that being a thing, but now it's very common today that you can make these movies that are just far more focused on substance versus style. Really good stories. Like I don't know if you guys saw Marriage Story on Netflix.
Nope.
No.
I don't know if I'd recommend it. I mean, it's a very good movie, but it's almost like
it looked depressing.
It's very depressing, yeah. And it's almost like usually, you know, like when you watch a movie, I feel like where like people are going through a divorce, like it just kind of feels like stupid or like cliched. This one was just like, it was like a little too real. And I heard afterwards that the director drew on like a lot of his own like personal experiences going through divorce. But it's like, it's a movie about two people going through a divorce that have a son, and he's caught in the middle of it. And like both of the parents are nice and they love each other and they love their son, but at the same time, like they're going through a divorce and like tension arises because they're going in separate directions, and it's just it's painful.
Yeah, I know it got like great critical praise, but I didn't hear many good things from people. But I don't know, like it's like from what I heard, it was just too real, also too forced. As I don't know, I forget how someone described it. It was like too trying to set up a story that was about pain type of thing. I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No,
I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think movies are cheaper to make now, so lots of other studios that couldn't really have popped up that, you know, can do it now because it's cheaper and easier to make a movie and to get it distributed these days.
Yep, I agree. And I just think there's more of an appetite for a movie that doesn't need like big actors or crazy special effects. I think people are more interested in a good story, and I think movies are recognized more for that nowadays than they have been previously.
I don't know what it is. 2014 was quite the year for me in movies, I guess. But I thought of Whiplash, and then we were talking about Prisoners, and what's his name? Paul Dano, I think, is his name. He was also in Love and Mercy, also came out 2014. But that was the Beach Boys movie, which I thought was like fantastic. It it tells like the story of what's his name, Brian from the Beach Boys in the past when they were like making some of their original albums, and then also like his current current life, and it cuts back and forth, and really well put together. And it was really neat seeing how, I mean, who knows how true it is, but I imagine it is, but how they built the Pet Sounds album, how they recorded that in the studio and everything. Just really neat, just to get a little glimpse of the history of the Beach Boys. But Whiplash was another one that was just kind of little indie, just smaller film, I think. But J.K. Simmons, was in it, and I think he got an Oscar out of it. And it was another one where you don't necessarily, you go into it and you're like, what is this? What's this guy going to school to play drums? And as you see how intense it is, by the end you're like, you think you've been listening to jazz music for 20 years, and like you're way into it and into what he's trying to get to, and I don't know, it really grips you and pulls you in. But that's really good drama. Sometimes I'm not a huge fan of dramas in general, but sometimes it's nice to step away from action and sci-fi and stuff and get a little dramatic.
Which takes us into a good segue. What movie mood are you in currently as we are locked up in our homes and unable to go to the movie theater or go do fun stuff away from home? What kind of things are you watching lately from any genre or, any time period?
So my wife and I have actually started a new tradition this year where every Sunday we'll watch a movie, which I kind of enjoy to eliminate some of the Monday scaries, and we just take turns each Sunday picking a movie.
The Monday scare?
What's that?
The Monday scary?
Sunday scaries, sorry.
Oh.
I hate Mondays, by the way.
What's a Sunday scary?
Just that you have Monday coming up. You don't get like a little. You've never heard that before? Like you get a little anxious before Monday.
I can't wait for Monday. Get back to work and everything.
Gosh. Great. I know, it's You walk out of the office on Friday and you're like, all right, and you find a way to forget about all the things that are stressing you out, and then it's all coming back to you on Sunday. You're like, oh, what am I going to be heading back into tomorrow? But no, I've really enjoyed that tradition because it, I don't know, helps wind me down for the weekend and get ready for the week to come. But I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I feel like we've been watching a lot more like 90s and like 80s movies. And so that's been fun, I think. And we've watched like also a lot of like more musical-ish movies. Like I mentioned, I had never seen That Thing You Do. So I had seen that recently. We saw that new, and this is new, but we saw that new Beatles movie. So I would say, yeah, like I'm kind of like wanting to take like a trip down memory lane a little bit. Like I saw all the Indiana Jones movies are on Netflix, and I just love Indiana Jones through and through. And I rewatched them within the last few years, but I don't know. I think right now more than anything, I just want nostalgia.
Okay. We've kind of been going through, and doing. It's hard because like when we hang out with Brooke's siblings who all live in the area too, they're into like more action suspense movies. So we've been doing some of that. We just watched Midway, which is a war movie, which I don't know how I got my wife to watch that, which was pretty good. It wasn't out of this world good, but it was good. And then we watched, I can't remember the name of it. It's going to kill me. The one with Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan. It's a newer Jackie Chan movie where it's about the IRA. Pierce Brosnan's like the head of the IRA. And The Foreigner. That's it. Yeah. And that one was fun. It was a little suspenseful, but I didn't find any of the characters very relatable, or you don't really root for anybody because they're all kind of bad people, and so that was kind of a bummer. But it was still good, and there was still some fun Jackie Chan style stuff. But then we've kind of mostly been hitting up the comedies to lighten the mood of everything. So I think we are hitting those. We watched The Other Guys, which is
I love that
a phenomenal movie.
So
Love
good.
that one. Anytime we can sneak, a TLC song into our conversation, we do, thanks to that movie. So that's kind of where we're at. Jordan?
Yeah, that's good. We've been mainly watching TV, series lately, but through quarantine, I think the most recent movies we watched were Knives Out, which we mentioned last week, which I thought was a great movie, and then Ford vs Ferrari, which is another fun one, another pretty original, type of movie. So I mean, those are kind of comedies, actions, and dramas. So I mean, that's kind of what we stick to mainly, is comedy and an action. Not huge into like horror movies or scary movies, but for the most part, it's been TV when we do have time to sit down.
Good deal.
Okay, did we talk about It on this podcast already? Did I already tell you guys you need to watch It?
You did, yeah.
Okay.
You told us
won't
we
go
should
back
watch
down.
it. Yeah.
Even if you don't like horror, you should watch it.
Yeah, I just can't get into that stuff.
One of these days.
Maybe one day. So it's weird how, like, thinking about it and, like, looking back, like, some of my favorite movies were obviously movies that I grew up with, and movies that, like, some of them I don't watch a ton anymore, but they're still, like, up there with, as some of my favorites. So what are some of the movies you guys grew up with that have stayed your favorites, even though you may not watch them a ton, but some of your all-time favorites that way?
For me, I would say Almost Heroes with Chris Farley, Matthew Perry. Probably I don't really ever like to say I have a favorite movie because there's just so many directions you could take that. But if someone's forced me into a corner, it's going to be Almost Heroes, just because it definitely wasn't one of Chris Farley's biggest movies, but just with us as friends, I feel like we watched it over and over and over, and it just became this thing for us that it was just so funny and so repeatable, and like it just consumed our lives in many ways. And so I don't know,
Play that haunting air you played me this morning.
yeah, I mean, it's just there's so many pieces of that movie that, and like I said, what's also fun is like not many people even know that it's a movie, that it was one of Chris Farley's last movies, but it's always a classic. I'll put it on whenever and enjoy it, laugh again.
It is a great movie. The sequence where he gets the eagle's egg all those times, it's so like slapsticky, but I just can't help it. It's really funny.
I know. It is dumb, right? I mean, there's so many of those things that are dumb, but when you're in a room and it's just your friends cracking up at it, like it still makes me laugh because like that pleasure has been built into me around that movie.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great one. In that vein, similarly, Spaceballs is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah. Classic.
The sci-fi Mel Brooks sci-fi spoof movie is pretty phenomenal. With again, just so many quotable lines. John Candy is amazing. Rick Moranis is amazing in that one.
Yeah,
just a classic.
it is.
The ones that I remember watching are just like the most popular, I would say. I just remember my brother and I, like in the summer, we would watch either Star Wars or Indiana Jones. Pretty much every day we'd watch one of those movies. And it's funny, like thinking back on it, because it's only 6 movies. Because this was before the sequels rolled around. But it's like funny, like how many times did I watch those movies? And I think that's part of the reason why I don't watch them more today, is that I've seen them so many times and they're burned into my memory, and I just know them like the back of my hand. But yeah, I love those movies. I guess Harrison Ford, that was my childhood. That's who I aspired to be. I aspired to be a mean, grouchy, kind of a jerk of a person. Oh, and then actually, this is funny. I was gonna say, oh wait, there's another movie, and then I'm like, crap, Harrison Ford is in this movie too. I loved The Fugitive when I was a kid, so I loved the dynamic between Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones in that movie. And I think as like a kid, I watched that movie many, many times, and I was like kind of proud of myself when I kind of figured out what the plot actually was. And not for an adult, it's nothing complicated. But I think for a 8 to 10-year-old kid, it's a little bit advanced for you to follow that plot. And I think after like 20 times, I finally got it. And so I was especially proud of myself for understanding The Fugitive.
So now we know who Max's celebrity crush is.
Yes.
I know I've seen The Fugitive, but what I remember the most about it is a middle school history teacher would always quote The Fugitive.
What
Mr.
line?
Esty, it wasn't me. It was the one-armed man. And, like, he would always talk about the one-armed man.
Yeah.
And, like, how, like, if ever he or a student got caught about something, he would say it was a one-armed man. One-armed man.
I don't remember him doing that, but yeah,
Mr.
you find
Esty.
that man. Yeah, I thought it was going to be the classical line from that movie is Harrison Ford's like, I didn't kill my wife. And Tommy Lee Jones is, I don't care. That's what everyone seems to
when the
quote.
this waterfall thing.
Yeah, and he jumps off the waterfall. That's like that's when the whole exchange happens.
Yeah.
I think Star Wars is pretty and Indiana Jones are pretty universal. We've done a whole episode on Star Wars, and so Star Wars is a huge part of all of our movie watching history growing up. Indiana Jones, I did as well. I loved Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and The Last Crusade. Temple of Doom I would only watch on occasion, but the other two I would watch all the time.
Crystal Skull, love it.
Crystal Skull.
Yeah,
Yikes.
once they started swinging through the trees with the monkeys and Crystal Skull, I knew this was greatness.
And the nuclear blast in the refrigerator
I
was
forgot about that.
epic.
The ants that were like making themselves like into a giant tower. There's much to be said about that movie. It's unfortunate.
Those ants are real, Max. That's a thing. I saw it on MacGyver once. Another one. Sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
Well, sorry, you could go. It doesn't.
Are you gonna be a contrarian and try and tell us that Crystal Skull is actually pretty good?
It is the best of the series. No, I was gonna say. I mean, those Indiana Jones and Star Wars. They came out before we were born. Right when we were born. I think for our generation, those new ones are gonna be Lord of the Rings and maybe Harry Potter mixed in there. Those are ones that I can always could put on no matter what, and always enjoy them. Like especially Lord of the Rings, they're hours and hours, but if it's on, I can watch it. Like I don't mind sitting down and going through 3 hours worth of a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, this 2019, I'm very disappointed in myself, was the first year that I haven't annually watched all 3 Lord of the Rings since I think they came out on DVD.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so, big fan of Lord of the Rings. I've sat and watched all 3 extended editions in a row in a day twice. Both times with you, right, Max?
I know I was there for one of the times. I think the first time we tried, maybe your second time was with someone else. You were cheating on me. But I remember that we tried doing it when we were like teenagers, and we made it through 5 of the 6 discs, and we went to go play basketball, and then we just never watched the last 2 hours.
Oh, you're right.
But
that's right.
When we were at college, we were like, this is it. We're gonna repent of our sins and do this thing.
And we made it happen.
Oh my gosh, yeah. In fact, I don't think I had seen. That's cool that you've been watching them every year, because I don't think I had watched any of them since that day. And until recently, I rewatched The Fellowship of the Ring, and I fully plan to go now watch Two Towers and Return of the King. And I love those movies. Although I will say I was a little. I mean, it's just because it's been so long since I had seen them, but I was a little bummed when I watched The Fellowship of the Ring, which is my favorite of the three. But there was just some aspects of it that hadn't aged well. And mostly I think there's a lot of slow motion in that movie. There's a lot of slow-mo, just like random weird slow-mo like occurring all the time. I don't know if you guys feel that way, but that's what I observed.
I haven't noticed that about the slow-mo, but some of the CGI, like in the Two Towers and particularly Return of the King, I don't think has held up super well, like with the Oliphants and the...
Oh, really?
And the Ghost Men or whatever. Yeah, some of that doesn't look great anymore. Huh. But there's still great movies, and I would watch them, like Jordan said, anytime. If it's on, I'm going to watch, because those are some of my favorite stories ever.
Yeah.
If you get rid of the slow-mo, you're not going to have enough time to cry when Boromir's taking arrows, wipe your tears, and hide them so no one else can see them. I mean, you got to have the slow-mo in there.
Yeah. When Boromir gets taken down, like, it's a tearjerker every time.
That is a very good scene, and maybe this is weird, but it's like a really cool like brotherly love scene. Like I love that, like the exchange between Aragorn and Boromir as he's dying, and like Aragorn could have kind of been like a jerk to him, but he wasn't. Like he was super nice to him, and I don't know. I really that scene is really really well done. Kudos to those guys.
And because you kind of like you kind of think Boromir's a bad dude for a bit, but then you realize he wasn't really. It's the ring's fault, right?
And I think we can all relate with that. It's like we're all, we're all good people, but that doesn't. And I think that's like now I'm getting too philosophical here, but like I think that is like a problem in today's world where I think you observe someone make a mistake and you're like, oh, that person must be like a really bad person. It's like, no, like it's just like their flaws maybe a bit more obvious, where some of us get a little bit more lucky and we can hide our flaws a little bit more easily. And I think you see that in Boromir. It's like, yeah, like he made like a pretty big mistake, but I mean, shoot, like the guy like gave his life for a couple hobbits he barely knew. So hats off to him.
Yep. Agreed. I would be remiss if I didn't mention The Goonies, one of my all-time favorite nostalgia movies that I used to watch almost annually when I was growing up. Just a phenomenal movie that I can never get enough of, especially because it was fairly analogous to our growing up, the group of friends that did dumb things, even though we never caught criminals, but
or looked for
found
treasure. Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to work still.
Yeah, but it was a great movie that kind of defined how I looked at the world. And that's another one came out in the 80s, either before or right after we were born, and was still pretty influential for me.
Yeah, that's a classic.
It's funny that you bring up The Goonies, because I think I saw it on Twitter or something today that Josh Gad did an interview with Steven Spielberg and like the entire cast of The Goonies, and they're just reminiscing about their experience like filming the movie. And I need to go, and I only saw like 30 seconds of it, but I need to go back and I want to watch it. It's on YouTube somewhere. It just came out.
That sounds awesome.
Everyone's locked at home, so I guess he was like, hey, let's get the entire cast of The Goonies together on Zoom and talk about what making that movie was like.
That's awesome. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, any other nostalgia movies that you guys just
Princess Bride
can't live without?
Oh, yeah.
Princess Bride.
That's a good one.
I haven't seen that in a
Classic.
long time, actually, but I watched it a lot as a kid.
That was a great movie. I remember when I first got to Utah, I had a DVD of it in a DVD player, and just like, it's that one where like the movie would finish, it would go back to the menu, and then if you let it sit for like a minute or two,
again.
it would start the movie again. And I just remember like doing homework and just letting that movie play over and over and over. It was just great. That's like a super quotable one too.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest sword fights, in my opinion, in movies.
Yeah, that's a good
I
one.
don't know. Finn and Kylo kind of have that beat,
Do they really?
No, I think it's better when Rey, with no training, takes him down. I like how they try and like make that right in episode 8, where it's like, you let like you let Rey like
girl
beat
with
you
no
with no
training.
training, and they're like, Yeah, you still didn't really explain away how that happened. You know,
Just because you're acknowledging
exactly.
it doesn't make it okay.
You acknowledged it, but it happened.
Yeah, that's funny. Ferris Bueller is another classic that I go back to all the time and love. You know, the cool kid that everyone aspires to be in high school is Ferris Bueller.
That's a great
Even though most of us are Cameron.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have the guts to be. I think I really love movies like that where the character is just like very cool with like breaking the rules, because that's just so not me. Like ditching school like that. Like that was just not me. Like I was too afraid of getting caught. And I'm still that way today. In fact, I just finished the show Better Call Saul, and I really enjoy it. And I think I really enjoy it because the main character is just like my exact opposite. Like I'd like to be like, wouldn't it be nice if I could just have like no regard for rules and laws and just like it would eat me up when I went to sleep at night. But these people are just like, nah, whatever. They have fun.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And Ferris gets away with everything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, in real life that there are always repercussions. And so
That's true.
it's fun to think like in a fantasy world where you could get away with everything. That would be pretty cool.
But that principal, man, so good. Did that guy get an Oscar? Because he deserves one.
He's so good. Les jeux sont faits. Translation: the game is up. Gotta love Mr. Rooney.
Yeah, Mr. Rooney.
Any other
There's gotta
nostalgic
be more now
movies?
that you've been like rattling off like a few. I'm like, shoot, like I feel like there must be like a million out there that I've neglected here.
Yeah, I mean, I watched tons of movies growing up, but those are the ones I would always like go back to and watch over and over. But like, you know, there's like Billy Madison, Tommy Boy, a bunch of those goofy comedies I would watch a lot, but not quite as much as the other ones we've mentioned. All right. Well, classic movies, good stuff. Let's talk about favorite genres, because that's kind of a thing now since superhero movies are kind of taking over. But different movie genres, what you like, what you don't like. I can start off and say that I do not like horror movies. I don't think I really like any scary movies. Like I can't think of a scary movie that I've seen that I like actually really, really liked or enjoyed. The closest thing would be like The Sixth Sense, just because of the huge twist. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of scary movies. I'm not a big fan of like full-on realistic dramas, like we talked about Marriage Story. I don't really like those. They're just too real and too depressing, and I like movies for like escaping real life and kind of feeling good instead of, you know, helping me understand the misery that other people go through sometimes. And like I really like war movies to an extent. Like Saving Private Ryan is one of like the best movies I feel like I've ever seen, but it's really hard to watch. And then movies like Black Hawk Down, I watched and I'm like, this is horrific. I'm never watching this ever again because it's so depressing. But those are kind of the movies, the genres that I don't like. So let's stick with that. Genres you don't like, if any.
It's hard to get into foreign films. That's a tricky one. I mean, I don't have anything against reading subtitles, but
you have a hard time reading.
Yeah, it's no. For a lot of different countries, they have such different tastes, you know. Than America. And I lived in England for a time, and the comedy there is just completely different and not funny.
I think it's hilarious.
It's gotten funnier, but back in the day, I agree, it was not funny.
Yeah, so and same with Spanish films or whatever, right? Like just the culture is just different, and so what they view as good cinema, it just doesn't really flow. I don't know. I don't really watch many anyway, so.
I really wanted to watch Pan's Labyrinth because it's kind of a fantasy movie, but I've tried to watch it like twice, and I'm like, I just get so bored reading. Like,
I don't know. That's kind of a cop out, just because I never watch them, and so I just say, hey, they're dumb. But
no, that's I never watch horror, so it works. If you don't like it, you're not going to watch it.
Yeah. Another better genre that I don't like. I would agree with you on horror, scary movies. I mean, let me say this actually. I'll take scary movies. I don't mind scary movies when they're like suspenseful, like Get Out. Like that was good. Like that was a scary thriller, but I really liked it. It's when they just get into the graphic, gruesome.
That's funny because Get Out is pretty graphic, I thought.
No, I'm talking like Saw and like The Hills Have Eyes and
yeah,
like,
I don't really watch those.
Where it's just like so extreme with just the gore, where it's like it just makes you queasy like watching some of it, and so I just don't. I just don't like watching it. It doesn't make me happy, so I just don't ever watch them.
Subgenre of horror like slasher movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. I agree. I don't like the super demonic stuff either. It's just depressing and silly, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I like ones like The Sixth Sense was good, where there's a twist at the end and it's not all bad and horrific. So, yeah, I agree with you there.
Watch it.
Max, any genres you don't like?
I would say the one that's coming out, which is, I guess I can't technically say I don't like it, but superhero movies. I'm just done with superhero movies. I agree with you. Avengers Infinity War and Endgame was a great closeout to Marvel, and it was great because I thought they did a good job of ending the series, or ending that chapter is a better way of saying it. But it was also great because I knew that I was done. After that, I decided I'm not going to keep investing the time to stay on top of these movies. And I think they did a pretty good job of trying to get away from it, but they're almost too formulaic for me, and just there's no real intrigue in it for me. Is even with like Infinity War and Endgame, was there any doubt in your mind what was going to happen? And I get part of that's fun too, like knowing that the good guys are going to win.
Do they, Max?
Yeah, they pretty much do. I mean, it took...
But you could say that really about any movie. Essentially, it's very seldom movies where the good guys don't win, right? It does happen, but 95% of the time, the good guys win in the end.
Yeah. But sometimes there's like costs and like casualties like along the way, which I just don't...
And Tony Stark is not a cost?
Yeah, it took like...
Where is your
30
soul,
movies
Max?
to get there.
Gamora.
She's coming back, though.
Black Widow.
Natasha Romanoff.
Yeah, there was no...
Come on,
no
Max.
tears. Tony dying was definitely like, oh, that's like sad. I was kind of hoping and expecting Captain America to die. So they killed the one that everyone loves, which is, kudos to them. But yeah, it took how many movies came before that, where it was just pretty much, hey, here's a bad guy and here's some really corny, stupid plot line. I think where it hit the pinnacle of just ridiculousness to me was Iron Man 3, where there were people that could like regenerate their limbs, but also turn their limbs like into lava. And I was just like, this is stupid. So yeah, I would say that's one genre that's really tired for me. Other than that, though, I guess I can kind of see what you're saying, Colby, on like just straight up drama movies. I think I agree with you. Like I want to be entertained and uplifted. I don't mind being, I enjoyed Marriage Story. There's a reason why I said I don't know if I really recommend it unless you want to be bummed out after you watch the movie, or A Star Is Born, I think, is another good example of that, where it's like, yeah, like it's a great movie in a lot of ways, but yeah, you just kind of walk away from it being like, I feel like a little deflated now when you don't get that happy ending. So now I'm talking in circles and saying I don't always want the happy ending, but apparently I do.
It's going back to the bad guys always losing. Like, you always think it would be so cool to have a movie where the bad guys win, but then it's like, kind of get that, and I don't know, it's not that fulfilling.
It's not super satisfying.
There's just something about that I don't know what, it's not a trope. It's just that theme. I don't know. You just kind of have to do it.
Right.
But as far as superhero movies go, I think there was a point where they just became they weren't so much about telling these cool stories that we kind of grew up with, and they turned into more commercial ways of making money. Can't blame Disney or any other company for making them that way, but that's just when they kind of sell out, so to speak, and lose their luster. What are you gonna do, right? I mean, you just gotta kind of take a break from them, because if you just keep making more of them, they're just going to get old eventually. Right. And I think they definitely are. Well, doesn't matter.
Well,
we go on and on about comic book movies.
Suicide
Captain
Squad
Marvel
is the gold standard. Batman versus Superman, maybe Silver, and then everything else would be after that. I think we can all think that those are the final words of wisdom on this subject.
Yep.
Okay, so guilty pleasure movies. What are movies that you are not proud to admit that you really like? Just rattle off a couple here as we close out.
Pitch Perfect. I freaking love Pitch Perfect so much.
Look, as far as music goes, I actively say I'm a big fan of Britney Spears. So I don't think there's really any movies that I'm ashamed to admit to.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ashamed of saying I like Pitch Perfect, but
yeah,
I realize maybe I'm not supposed to, but
no, I think
that's your problem. You should be.
I think it's a hilarious movie.
Yeah,
1 and 2. I didn't really see 3, I don't think, but
the third one was not so good, but yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth Banks and who's his face? Does the announcers? I mean,
the commentators. They're really
hilarious.
Those guys are pretty funny in that. I agree.
Anyway, I don't know. I really can't think of any that I just really hate. I could say this: like, there's plenty of kids movies that I really like. I don't know. Like, I like the Cars movies, or like Pixar and Disney movies. Like, I like them, and like when I put one on for the kids and like they're not into it, I'm like, shut up, I'm trying to watch this. Like, I mean, I do the same thing. That's probably as far as a guilty pleasure as I have.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I guess I'm not super ashamed to admit. If somebody asked me, I would say I like it, but I'm sure movies that people might be surprised that I really like. One of my go-tos is You've Got Mail, classic.
No, I've never
Tom
seen
Hanks,
You've
Meg
Got
Ryan
Mail.
romance.
I've never seen it, believe it or not. Yeah.
You got to see it. It's great. It's a great movie.
I don't think any less of you, Colby.
Good. But that's a great one. It's a classic in our house. Tom Hanks, just his face on your TV is soothing. So that's great. Runaway Bride is another go-to. I'm not a huge Richard Gere fan, but Julia Roberts, it's a great movie. So those are kind of my, and okay, last one is Pride and Prejudice, the newer version. But just because it reminds me of my wife. But it is entertaining too. It's very the music is beautiful and very soothing, and the pastoral images as well.
Was that the new one with not Natalie Portman? Who's the other?
No, Keira Knightley.
That's the one with her?
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
I saw that years ago, but I don't remember it. I'm sure it's fine.
It's pretty good, and people have lots of opinions about Pride and Prejudice. I read the book, and I was in the play in high school, and it's not awful. I've learned to like it and kind of identify with the characters, and so yeah, good movie.
There's also a bunch of like rom-coms on Netflix that are quite good. Like did you guys ever see To All the Boys I've Loved Before?
Yep.
Yeah, I actually really liked that
good
movie.
And then there's Always Be My Maybe. I'm scrolling.
I loved that one.
Yeah,
that one was funny.
That was another good one. And then there's this other one called Set It Up, which was pretty good. So yeah, and sometimes those are like, I'm still a Jordan. I'm not ashamed of it, but sometimes that's just really what you need is like a good, like feel good movie that you don't really have to think about at all.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Any movies anyone wants to mention before we wrap up?
I love Lion King, the original animated version. It's one of my favorites.
Tearjerker.
I couldn't get into the newer one.
I actually didn't think the newer one was as bad as, and I think I had the opposite problem with Knives Out, where everyone loved Knives Out, and then I went and watched it. I was like, huh, this wasn't as good as I was expecting it to be. And then I saw Lion King, the whatever you want to call it, the real life version, quote unquote, and everyone was hating on it. And then I saw it, I was like, huh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So, but yeah, the original is obviously superior.
Yeah.
Here's another one that I don't really view as a guilty pleasure, but I know it's kind of a meme to make fun of. But Adam Sandler movies, I think they're hilarious. Like any of them, his old ones and his new ones, like, and everything in between, like down to Jack and Jill. I think that's hilarious. Like, they're just movies I can always put on and always find something that's just hilarious about him.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to like Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore, like, since that, was my kind of humor when I was younger, I definitely still chuckle at those other ones. I haven't seen a lot of his new ones, but I can agree with that. I agree.
I do want to.
I'll put a. Go ahead,
I was
Max.
going to say, I do want to see Uncut Gems. Is that what it's called? His new movie? That's not really a comedy, but I've heard really good things about it.
Yeah, that's not a comedy.
Yeah, I've heard it's fantastic.
Yeah, I've heard it's pretty
Oscar
good. Space movies are kind of one of my favorite genres, so some of those space movies are some of my all-time favorites that we didn't really get to, like Apollo 13.
Great movie. That is a very good movie. I haven't thought about that movie in a long time. Holy smokes. That's a great movie.
Phenomenal movie. Tom Hanks' face on your TV screen. Just good stuff.
That is a good one. Did you guys see Ad Astra last year?
I did, and I really like space movies. That one didn't do it for me as much, though.
I was kind of indifferent on it. I don't know if I liked it or didn't like it. It was kind of interesting, but yeah, that one wasn't. What?
I loved it. I loved it for the space aspects of it and kind of the, only slightly in the future. Right. So it's like some actual space technology with some science fiction. But all in all, it wasn't phenomenal.
No, I would agree with you there. Like, and I have no desire to ever watch that movie again. It was a little slow.
Yeah.
But speaking of space movies, I also really liked. I did like Interstellar, but it's a bit of a slow movie too. But I really enjoyed that one.
I loved Interstellar. I loved The Martian.
I didn't love The Martian because I think I like the book so much more than the movie, and I hate to be that person.
I haven't. No, that's reasonable. I haven't read the book. It's what I'm gonna read next as soon as I finish what I'm reading now.
In fact,
yeah,
and I think I had read the book right before the movie came out, which I think is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, that's rough.
But the book is the thing that was missing from the movie, and this is blasphemy probably, but I'm not a huge Matt Damon fan, and the main character in The Martian, the book, is just really funny and just very dry and very sarcastic. I would laugh the whole way through the book, despite he's just going through terrible, life-threatening stuff the entire time. But it's just fun to kind of hear him reason through all these problems. And that part was a little bit lacking in the movie. So it was and they kind of changed a little bit of the ending in the movie. And it was just like a little bit more Hollywood and just silly than it was in the book.
Well, that has been our review of movies in general. We've mentioned some good ones. Go check them out. Let us know if there's some that we missed that are your absolute favorites that we should check out. Jordan, tell the people where they can find us.
Well, you can hit us up on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all at The Couchboard. And feel free to email us any of your questions or comments or concerns or whatever you feel like at thecouchboard@gmail.com.
This was the definitive movie podcast, in case anyone was wondering.
Yeah, and all be all.
Yep, you never need anything else. Thanks for listening, folks. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.